So the GI Diseases Research Unit of GIDRU was established in 1982 by Dr. Beck, who is the father of gastroenterology here in Kingston. And Dr. Vanner worked tirelessly in the late 90s to get a very important grant in 2000, and they actually built this new state-of-the-art facility, which is very impressive building at KGH. And there were some disconcerting thoughts that, oh, now GI is moving to KGH, and we're not going to be part of the Hotel Dieu. I don't think anything could be further from the truth, and I think it speaks a lot of this, that we're not a building, there's not a place that we are, it's a team, and GIDRU is a concept rather than a place. From the members of the team, we have people from everywhere, from critical care, microbiology, physiology, surgery, pathology, pediatrics, and internal medicine and GI. And everybody has a contribution to the research. There'll be a quiz on this later, so everybody pay attention. So most of you had the chance to walk through the endoscopy research suite, and it seemed like a pretty neat place. I hope you thought so at least. But it's more than a neat place. It was really groundbreaking, and I'm going to give Dr. Vanner full credit on thinking this part of it through, and having the thought of having a research suite that's purely dedicated to doing research endoscopy cases, not doing without being muddied by anything else, and that allows us to do clinical trials and accomplish clinical research in a much faster way, answer the questions we want to get answered. It's the first of its kind in North America, if not the world, actually. And as you can see, there's a lot of interaction with various other parts of the plan, getting tissues, sampling them. We have a new processing here at the hotel as well, and it all goes back and forth. Most of these arrows go back and forth because there's a lot of interplay between the members of the team. Some of the past research we've done in endoscopy in particular, I'd be here forever if we talked about all the research we did in general. Sodium phosphate for colon cleansing. Those of you who've had colonoscopies done in the past may be familiar with that incredibly salty solution, which is always better than the big jug at least. And Dr. Vanner published one of the first studies looking at this in a randomized fashion, and it became the landmark paper for its use for the next 20 years. We then, I became more involved in research on the safety of sodium phosphate when I was a resident, and then we looked at, Dr. Vanner also did a study with Dr. Barkley looking at taking Gatorade. And if you're going to take these small volume solutions, then maybe taking Gatorade would help, and that's changed a lot of people's practice as well. Another preparation which has come to North America is Pico-Salax. It's now the market leader in Canada. And when it first came to Canada, when I first came back, Dr. Vanner and I sat down and we said, well, what's the research supporting its use? And there really wasn't much there, despite its being used widely. So we did the first North American studies on this, and have continued to look into it. Eosinophilic esophagitis. Someone might approach me after this, but if you have swallowing problems since you were a teenager, it may be that you have this, and it's common enough that people say, hey, I've had those problems, and we've done a number of research studies looking into that as well. What are we doing now? It's not very sexy, but it's very productive from a research point of view, and there's always questions about how to clean out the bowel the best for these procedures. So we've done some more studies on plexus. Once you get it clean, you then need to be able to see, and I think you saw some of that today. We need to look around those folds. Those of you who tried your hands at the colonoscopy realize there's a lot of folds and nooks and crannies, and actually seeing what's behind those is important. So we're doing studies looking at some of the newer technologies, and David Woods, I welcome him here from Pentax North America, or the Americans. And they can actually look in behind those folds rather than just trying to flatten them out. We're looking at how to do things more efficiently, and most people think of efficiently as a bad thing, but I don't think that's the case here. We've got patient input on how to actually process things through the unit, and also the more efficient we become, the more patients we can treat. It's very much a patient-centered approach. This is my baby, education in colonoscopy, and you saw the research suite. You can see the TV camera up, or the TV up there with the cameras from the endoscopy suite. Those of you who were in there, Dr. Rokoleski showed you the GPS of the scope and such. And we're doing education research on looking on various aspects of training and trying to train better. And that's becoming a more and more important thing. We all used to train by being an apprentice. You watch, you try, you get yelled at a bit, and then you try to figure it out. We're trying to do it a bit better than that now. I can't speak very much to this besides to say that a number of people in the labs are studying things like irritable bowel and inflammatory bowel disease, which sound too similar but are very different. But there's a science behind it as well. And we're taking biopsies from patients with these conditions, and then we send them to Dr. Banner's and Dr. Bayak's labs, and they do some magic, and they tell us something about how it actually comes about. And hopefully the next step will then be to figure out how to help people with these conditions. You've heard a lot about the microbiome and the bacteria in people's bodies and guts and how that gets affected if you take antibiotics or if you get this infection called C. difficile, how that might affect you, and we're doing a lot of research in that area as well. We also talked about, some people were there when we were talking about general anesthesia for colonoscopies and whether that's a risk for complications. We're looking at what our risk factors for complications are and what we can actually do to reduce them. This is another schematic just to show that there's no one-way street. It all bounces back to each other. I think you need a cohesive group of scientists, both clinical scientists and people who are working in the labs, to actually bounce ideas off and to actually have a route. If you have a question, you can ask someone and say, well, that's a good question. Let's try to get some samples and figure that out. And everything we do here at the Dieu is actually helping us and enabling us to do these, answer these questions. This is the research suite. This is, most of you are in there now. It's our fourth room. It adds capacity to our endoscopy unit. It also allows us to do our clinical research. And it wouldn't have been possible without our industry partners in Pentax and Fearing, who provided both the capital equipment and the operating costs for actually run this unit. So I don't know who to give this credit to this quote to, but I came across this morning and I think it's great. So basically what it means to me is that we can't be complacent. We can't rest on our laurels and say we're doing a good job and carry on. We need to keep pushing things further. So going further, we're going to push these translation studies further. We're going to establish a colonoscopy curriculum. We've got one now. We're going to test it, refine it, spread it across the country, and try to make everybody we train the best colonoscopist possible. I think we can only do better when it comes to that. We're going to make sure we do better at finding polyps. A 15% polyp miss rate, which scares people when you hear it, but it's the reality, it isn't good enough. So we need to do techniques, and we need technology to actually help us to do a better job when it comes to that. We spent a lot of time and a lot of years looking for the best colon preparation period. It doesn't exist. It's the best preparation for that patient. I think that's the next step that we're taking now, trying to customize preparations to the patients, and we're doing research in that area as well. We're looking at the patient experience and trying to find out how we can make that better. And a lot of it's feedback and giving people results sooner, and giving them written results sooner. And the simple things like that make a big difference. We're developing an app, which everybody's excited about apps nowadays, but we're developing an app, we're developing software to actually remind patients about when to take their bowel preparations and when to take their medications and when to stop having seeds and taking their iron. And the problem is, and it's somewhat of a uniquely Canadian problem, because in the States, if you get seen to have a colonoscopy, you get your colonoscopy done in a month or a few weeks later, whereas here we know the wait list is a lot longer. You can forget all those instructions that you were given, so I think we need to do a better job when it comes to that. We're also looking at patient comfort and how to improve the safety of the procedures we're doing. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this because it's important. We have the GIDRU team, members of the GIDRU. That's mainly the faculty. We have our gastroenterology colleagues who are also members of the GIDRU, but if everybody isn't part of this, we have a study but everybody isn't feeling a part of it, then they're not going to help participate, they're not going to help fill out all those forms that need to be filled out. Clinical research assistants are essential to recruiting the patients, getting the data, making it all happen. Our secretaries do a great job of trying to organize the chaos that we throw at them on a regular basis. The endoscopy nurses do an amazing job, both clinical care but also research. And I visited other research or other endoscopy units. I'm going to come back to that later. But to be in an environment where questions are encouraged and people like trying to find the answer to something and is not looked at as research as a bother, it's very unique and very special. The booking staff are important as well. Jennifer, who does a great job now, and her predecessors, knowing that there are research days or research lists and certain patients would be appropriate for it. again, a buy-in that research is important. People who are reprocessing the scopes and cleaning them, if they think that we're just delaying things and slowing down everybody's day, then that changes the mood of everything. We don't get that here. We need to find patients for our studies, and having that same sort of attitude in the clinic, where patients are identified and say, well, maybe they'd be a good one for the study. Those are critical not little steps, but critical steps that can often be overlooked when you look at the team. And the people in the basic science labs who are driving some of these questions. Change gears a little bit, one of the other pillars of what we're doing, and you'll see they all tie in together, but education and endoscopy. So a couple of years ago now, actually, Dr. Opaleski and I had the honor of being at an director dinner. Dr. Archer came along as well. And I took my father-in-law as my date. He was very excited because Jean Chrétien was the visiting speaker. And that was a highlight for him. He got a great kick out of that. My highlight came after that. So after Chrétien finished, we got to follow Chrétien. And Mark and I got up and we had, I think, 3 to 4 minutes to speak to try to sell people on the idea of an education suite. And I think we did a pretty good job, because at that point, after we talked to people about the importance of education, about how we needed technology to build a room like this, to make that technology so that we could actually take the next step in education, we then looked for donations. And we put some of our own money in. I even got some cardiology money involved. And then the Gibson family stepped up and challenged everybody. And in the end, we came out with $92,000 to make that room the room it is now. So I've managed to get a grant looking into education and colonoscopy. I think it's valued around $220,000. And it's mainly to look at how we teach and how to do it better. So I'm very excited, and it definitely is one of my babies. On a national level, the Canadian Association of Gastroenterology is leading the way when it comes to the skills enhancement for endoscopy. It's a series of courses where we can do 2 things. We train the trainers. We've had 2 of those courses here where the teachers get taught how to teach better. And the wait list for that is fairly long. We also do master's classes where we actually teach people who are already out of practice. You can imagine it's a fairly daunting experience to come in after you've been practicing for 20 years. Nobody's looked over your shoulder for that long. And you come in and someone's going to watch you and critique you. And not someone, you're going to have 10 people watching you, critiquing you on the camera as well. There's a wait list for these courses. People are hungry to get better and to learn. And this is possible through this education suite as well. Myself and Amanda, who's hiding around the door there, we're actually doing some research together looking at another competency-based curriculum, which just means if you're educating someone, rather than just throwing information at them and saying, well, that's good enough, you're testing, assessing, and doing it until someone actually knows what they're doing. And we're actually looking at some unique aspects of quality in colonoscopy and trying to make it a team approach to verification of certain things, rather than just saying the doctor says this and the nurse said okay. It seems fairly straightforward. It seems fairly new millennium that we should be doing this already, but we're not. And if this pans out to be as good as we think it is, then I think it'll really change how we do things in endoscopy in general. Clinical care. So as a GI division, we provide tertiary level care for just about every patient with just about every problem. We have expertise in GI motility, how things actually move through the upper or the lower GI tract. Early cancer detection, particularly with things like Barrett's esophagus and finding cancer and removing it. We have a very busy and very high level expertise in inflammatory bowel disease clinic. And we have advanced liver disease care, which just keeps getting better. We've just added, Dr. Fleming's just come on to our group, and they're developing an even closer relationship with the Toronto transplant team so that the patient's care is much more seamless, rather than having 2 different teams taking care of it. Most of you got to see the renovations we did in the unit. We've got the new endoscope reprocessors, which have been great. We've got a brand new endoscopy fleet, which we're very excited about. And we've got carbon dioxide insufflators. So rather than having room air pumped into your valve and then having to get it out the natural way, we're getting close to using carbon dioxide in every case, where it goes out in a much more subtle way. The Nurse Flex SIG program is a program I think it's been around since about 2009. Carol, you can correct me if that's not right. And Robin Wheeler and we were training people to do sigma endoscopy, which screens for polyps. Deb is now the program lead, the endoscopy nurses, and every Tuesday afternoon they scope people looking for any polyps or any signs of early colon cancer. And we've got excellent uptake. We had 320 cases, patients went through the program last year. And we're doing quite well on a provincial level. There's always challenges, and it's just a matter of how we meet them. So our main challenge in endoscopy, at least, is waitlist management. Our waitlist just keeps seeing new challenges and get longer, and we're trying to address that. There are also care choices, and part of that, I'll come into that when I just address some of the things I'd like to see moving forward. We're expanding our capacity. We have 2 new gastroenterologists joining our group this year. I think that will help us address some of the issues we have. We also have to continue to push things and maintain the state-of-the-art facilities that we have. Some things are simple. We need new generators. We have, this is a horrible picture, but we have 2 new generators now and 3 not so new. We need to get them all up to speed so we have all the same equipment and all of them are the same capabilities. So endoscopic ultrasound. That wasn't part of the showcase tonight. I was a bit afraid David might come by and see it. It was very exciting times back in, I think, 2000 and 2001. We had the first endoscopic ultrasound unit in Ontario. We were on the cutting edge. We have the same unit now. So it's time to actually, it still works, it does the job, it's time to upgrade and move on. I think that's going to be one of our priorities going forward. Radiofrequency ablation, which is a great treatment. You can see here, this is looking down into someone's esophagus. It should be a really straight line from where the stomach and the esophageal mucosa meet. Instead, you see these red areas coming up. That's called Barrett's esophagus. And that's a change in the lining of the esophagus that can make you at higher risk of having esophageal cancer. If you have any cells that are at higher risk of cancer, you can now put down a balloon, apply radiofrequency heat therapy, and then 3 months later, it looks like this. It's amazing treatment. We don't have it here yet, but I think it's one of our wish list items that we'd like to have. And that's where we talk about care choices. This treatment is offered in Toronto, and patients who come to me with these problems, we talk about what they want to do. A lot of people don't want to go to Toronto for multiple treatments, so people will actually choose not to get the treatment rather than actually do the travel. And I don't think that's fair to the patient. And this is just the machine. It's fairly simple, and the balloons are used to apply the heat. So this is double balloon enteroscopy. I know it's getting warm and we're almost done, but this is double balloon enteroscopy. So this allows us to go sort of where no man has gone before you. This is a scope which allows you to go way down into the small bowel. And it goes hand in hand, so to speak, with the video capsule endoscopy that we do. We do video capsule endoscopy. You swallow the pill, it travels through your small intestine, it looks for any abnormalities. The problem is if we find an abnormality, what do we do then? And for now, we've been sending people to Toronto who need to have this procedure done. There's one person in Ontario doing this procedure. He really wants someone else to start doing it. So I think that's going to be one of our things we're going to look at accomplishing as well. So in conclusion, Hotel Dieu and endoscopy in particular, I think we're on the cutting edge. I really do believe in what we're doing. We're on the cutting edge of clinical care. We're on the cutting edge of education. I know that for a fact. Endoscopy quality, I think we're doing a great job. And endoscopy-related research, particularly with the team that we have and the enthusiasm we have, we're on the cutting edge there as well. On a personal level, I've been to many units. I've trained in Europe. I've been to units in all around North America and the United States, a lot of units in Canada. And I've spoken to most practitioners, particularly in academic units. And I know that we're lucky to be here. I know I'm very lucky to be here on several levels. But from an endoscopy unit point of view, to have a team that is so enthusiastic about all 3 things that we do, it's really important. I work in a group that I think is bar none better than anybody else in Canada. We're supportive of each other, we take pleasure in each other's successes, and that has to be that way in order for us to accomplish what we accomplish. I think I've already said this, that everybody does deeply care about all 3 things. And there's not that disconnect that, oh, we should be taking care of patients and not doing the education and not doing the research. The three are inseparable, particularly in care. The other thing I hear a lot about, and I don't want to give Sherry any ideas, but I go to, most other people complain about their hospitals. They complain about their administration staff. They complain that endoscopy is a blight in the hospital administration staff's eyes. It's a huge cost vacuum, and they don't want it to be there. Nothing could be further than the truth here. We feel like we are a crown jewel, the Hotel Dieu. We feel very well supported, and I think tonight's another example of that. To that end, I've been lucky enough to be given another position with Cancer Care Ontario, which comes with some money, which I decided I'd rather not take personally. I'd rather actually put it back into all those things we were talking about. So I'm going to make a donation to the Kingston Hospital Foundation, University Hospital Kingston Foundation, in order to support particularly research in gastroenterology here at the hotel.
I won't share the specific amount, but it is an extremely considerable gift that Dr. Hookey is making to the program here. And I just want to take a few moments to thank him and to share with all of you some thoughts on the key role that donor support plays in the quality of the exceptional endoscopy program and the entire gastrointestinal program within our community. It's okay, you can stand there while I talk about you. You're not off the hook. So Dr. Hookey, your very generous financial commitment is obviously going to help advance care and advance research while providing a very tangible example of your commitment to the patients of this community. I'm aware that specialists who choose to practice in a community of this size often face an extra burden than they would in a larger center because there are fewer of you to share the administrative burden and fewer of you to share the teaching and research burden. But you've chosen to live here and you've chosen to practice here, and we are indeed very blessed. And to have you underscore your commitment to patients with your personal financial contribution is just exceptional. So thank you so much. As many of you likely have, I've had occasion to benefit from the services of the entire endoscopy team in the last little while, and I can't tell you the sense of comfort that I felt in being wheeled on a stretcher past a sign that said the endoscopy unit team had been recognized with a Mission Excellence Award for the hospital, recognizing not only their commitment to quality but also their exceptional focus on compassionate patient-centered care. And I can tell you, having received services in other hospitals, you really notice the difference when you're in this one. I'm also delighted that tonight we have with us, and I can't see them, I hope they haven't stepped out, but George Hutchison, Graham Fraser, and Jay Rayner. There we go, Jay's here. I think Graham's out in the hall. I don't know where George is. Anyway, they are here representing the estate of their dear friend Larry Gibson. As Dr. Hookey mentioned, a generous gift from Larry's estate helped to create momentum for a flood of gifts at the B'nai B'rith dinner in 2012. And Gifts Made at that event purchased the colonoscopy simulator that we saw this evening in our tour. And although they aren't with us this evening, I'm also pleased to acknowledge the support of all the brothers of the Lodge 1191 of the B'nai B'rith, who organize this fantastic event each year and give all of the proceeds to charity. We have benefited substantially, Queens has benefited substantially, as have all kinds of social services, and would just like to ask you to join me in acknowledging the name. There's just one other supporter I would like to mention. Our friends at Morven Construction have made consistent, generous gifts every year in support of facilities and research for our GI program here and also at Gidger at Kingston General Hospital. It's just tremendous to see a family step forward with this kind of commitment to advancing medical research in our community and medical care facilities, and we're so thrilled to have their support as well.